Guys, welcome. Excuse me. Oh, I have something stuck in my chest, but now that it is gone, I would like to say welcome to Wednesday, April 11th, 2012. This is Day 9 Daily number 443, where we learn to be a better gamer. An incredible thing has occurred. A momentous, monumental occasion is before us. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready! It's a Zerg vs. Zerg today! Oh! I almost never do Zerg vs. Zergs, actually. I didn't intend to be someone who didn't do Zerg vs. Zergs very much, but upon reflecting back on the dailies that have happened and then actually opening up a list of them, I realized I haven't done one in a while. And there's no real reason behind that. I like watching Zerg vs. Zerg in tournaments. It's perfectly fun, but just hasn't been happening. So we're going to be looking at a delightful, amazing game between Sheth and Stephano, where we will get to see not one but two very interesting styles. We will also see how to hold off all sorts of crazy early threats, because a lot of Zerg players die to that. And most importantly of all, how to transition into the late stages of the game. And also, why does my camera, when I do this, it lightens? There's some really weird things about my camera, like if I lean close enough, it turns my walls green, and then when I lean away, it yellows them back up again. I don't know if that comes across for you, but for me, the white balance on the preview window looks weird. In other announcement type news today, I have a request for you. Let me go ahead and do this. You see the pinky of total culture? I even do that when I'm trying to shove a ho-ho in my mouth. One of those delicious Hostess treats where I'm like, oh, ding dong. It's a ding dong. And I always with the pinky. I would even play with the pinky out if I didn't need it to be such a hip-hoppin' high APM and badass. Which I am. So here's a request I have for you. As you can tell, I'm in somewhat of a good mood, and it may or may not be related to the fact that the new ladder system has come out recently that I think just gives a bigger spread. Before it was like, where is the closest person to your skill level? You're going to play against him. So it would be this cutthroat battle in every single match. I think it seems to have widened it a little bit, so you can play against a lot better or a lot worse opponents. Which for me means that I got to play against a bunch of way worse opponents. Woo! And it was gnarly because I would get ready and be like, okay, I'm building 3 gates to make sure I can defend against a 4 gate. And then I just see that he didn't have anything, so I'd go kill him with 6 stalkers. Boom! Easy peasy Febreze. It felt delightful. But there's this sort of weird fact about the way that I have been laddering, especially in the last several months. And it has a lot to do with my limited time, because I am I do commentary, I run the Day 9 TV stuff full time. So the times I get to play are sort of few and far between. So whenever I end up stepping on the ladder, I have a tendency to not do really standard stuff at all. If you see me present something in the daily and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a really standard, solid, easy Protoss vs. Zerg style, I tend not to do that. For me, I like to do more wacky, zany stuff because I like to experiment under a competitive environment. And I like to figure out my own strategy and be like, I did that. It's leads to sometimes lower win rates, but higher reward overall. So, given the fact that I do these zany strategies, my experience on the ladder tends to be the following. I am more than capable of beating really, really good players and losing to absolutely awful players too. The fact that I love exploring completely unexplored strategy areas means that a lot of times people will not expect it, and of course people can naively do stuff to kill me completely easily, making me go, whoa, I'm way off mark with my experimentation. So I don't actually know what the new ladder system is like for you. I'm just sort of curious if you like it or if you don't, what it feels like. Because I know I always advocate things like do the same build a lot, do it multiple times in a row. Does this work for you? Is it good? Is it bad? And there it is. It looks like the chat has managed to completely crash. For some reason, something wonky is going on with it. So just send me an email, feedback@day9.tv. I was just curious, and I thought it would be an interesting way to begin the discussion for today's daily. But indeed, no, nothing is coming up. So, hey, cool, I guess I am really just a nerd alone talking to himself. Yeah! The reason I was sort of curious about this is that it pertains directly to the Zerg versus Zerg that we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, it sort of pertains some to my own Zany ladder experiences, but Zerg versus Zerg has this very odd feel to it, where often there's such a huge threat of dying early on to big Ling Baneling pressure at the start that players will over-defend. They'll overbuild Ling Baneling. And as a result, when they realize, oh crap, I don't actually have that many units, and he's starting to drone, well, let me go try to attack him. And there's a lot of players who never really get to the mid and late game, or in a more general sense, who never know how to get to the mid and late game. It's this big, scary hurdle past this start point. So what we're going to see in today's daily is styles that focus a lot more on the late game, and with this new sort of divergent ladder system, I'm hoping that that opportunity to play against players of the lower level will let you flesh those timings out and get a little bit comfortable with no units at the start of a Zerg vs. Zerg, so that when you go to play against those players way better, you at the least know kind of where those nice timings are before you have to make them clean and precise. God, I wish that chat would come up. That would be so nifty-tastic, but alas, it's dead and gone. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop into this game, and again, the big emphasis that I want to be placing in there, and look, they're already chatting, is this idea of dying in the early game of the Zerg vs. Zerg. How to avoid it, what to think throughout it, etc., 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 etc. And also there has a tendency to be some sort of nutty styles in a lot of the game. Now, what I want to note at this phase is I'm just going to say it out loud rather than try to find a game that shows it, but there's this weird idea of at any point you have to be ready to drop everything and defend against an all-in. This is what makes people think that Zerg is crazy and unpredictable, is they think, well, I have to defend against this all-in, and this all-in, and this all-in, and this all-in, and this all-in. But what I want you to envision is, like, align the path of your build order, and at any point in time, you just need to drop into defense mode and hold off the attack. So we'll just be noting those as they go on, because as I've said that, it might not seem clear and obvious, but it ends up being that way when you're a player like Sheth or Stephano. So Stephano is going to be opening up with a extractor spawning pool. This will, of course, give him the Zergling speed upgrade benefit. Sheth, I think very clearly, is going to be opening up with the early expand, and the very clear follow-through is, oh, derp, I'm going to try to get a lot of drones up and rely on my early expand to an advantage. And of course, they're talking about middle names and all this stuff. And we already have Sean's full name, so apparently I guess that means that we can easily steal his identity and all that good stuff. But Stephano's smart enough and knows that on the internet, indeed everyone is like your parents thought they were in 1995, evil and villainous and criminal in nature. So LiquidSheth does, I would say, a marginally bold move, which is to go extractor, then spawning pool a little bit late. I tend not to over-obsess about this too much when thinking about the strategic ideas. This just literally is, you get a little bit better economy, and you get an earlier Zergling speed. But in terms of the early defenses, like, wow, if my opponent is going Ling Baneling all in, do I really need to get up some kind of, Baneling nest or not, and this and that? It won't really be too much of an effect. But at this point in the game, we can already see how big of an influence these Overlord scouting patterns are. We have Sheth sort of stepping out into the center area. To note, you always want to get your Overlord to his expansion as fast as possible. That is the #1 sign if some sort of all-in is coming up soon. So I actually want to stop for a moment and talk about Protoss versus Protoss, just because things end up being way more clear in that matchup. For a long time, people thought the matchup was all 4-gate all the time. The only way to defend against a 4-gate was to do a 4-gate. I want you to envision that it's how do I say it? There's like a magical ESP link you have that if someone decides to go all in 30 seconds later, you get knowledge of that. A big light bulb goes off on your head, or actually it goes off on your desk. It just goes bing, and you go, oh, thank you, All In Light, for letting me know. And when that light goes off, you know that a 4-gate is coming. And this 4-gate is 20 probes. And that's when the 4-gate's coming. So let's say you're playing, and you're up to 22 probes. Bing! The light goes off. Oh, I guess I better stop everything that I'm doing, build a lot of units, knowing that when all is said and done, I have that 2-probe lead. This has happened a lot. It's happened all the time in the old school days. There's always 22 versus 20 probes. Very common. But I want you to envision that maybe you're at 26 probes, and bing, the light bulb goes off, and you go, oh, I guess I better drop everything and defend. Even though it might be a different style of 4-gate, it looks like he probably went 23 or 24 probes, you're still ahead by that 2 probes. This is what happens. This is the logic that you need to have in Zerg vs. Zerg. You need to kind of be looking for the signals. Is there an all-in coming up? No. Keep going, keep going. Is there an all-in coming up? No. Keep going with droning. Is there an all-in coming up? Bing! And then drop and build the emergency defense. And in all honesty, you don't need to be building that many other lings, banelings, roaches at all, as long as you are kind of thinking in this, oh my god, is everything okay mindset? And the first and biggest example of this is when this hatch goes down. This should be a really common timing. Before 4 minutes, if your opponent is going for some sort of gas, pool, boom, expand, he should be throwing it down then. If for some reason you're like here and you're not seeing anything, you bet your ass you got to build a baneling nest. You got to build a spine crawler. You got to be building a lot of zerglings. You're going to have to send your 2 queens over here. Pretty much simple as that. And this is where a lot of times you'll see a player, instead of building this Zergling speed first, will build the Baneling nest down first. And with that gas, we see the 100 gas now spent on that. This is where it would be one of those, bing, holy crap, oh my god. Zergling's here to defend. A lot of players do prefer speed, but again, I'm illustrating the idea of if you had the knowledge of this hatch not being placed down, that's when you could kind of, bing, emergency defend. So Sheth will totally be throwing down a couple of Zerglings, but since he saw that this hatch is going down, he will indeed get out a round of drones. First round of Lings, this is part of the build order. This is not any sort of real response type action. I mean, sure, you could see the hatch first along with yourself, and you could build the drones there too, but again, that's part of a pre-planned build order. This is very much so just going straight with it. And likewise in Stephano's camp, his play is actually not that many Zerglings, just 8. And then afterwards, he's been pretty much building drones and building the spine crawler. And he's using these Zerglings to harass. This is very, very typical. Now, we've talked a little bit about from Sheth's point of view, he would, holy crap, bing, all in coming in. And I love the noise bing because I'm imagining a really loud light switch going off. Bing! Oh! Spine crawler. Throw down maybe 2 spine crawlers if you want. Stephano, what does he do if he gets the sense that there's some sort of all-in? Well, easy. He just keeps guys in gas, builds a baneling nest, does something like this, continues to build Zerglings. But you still always really, really want to be building drones to a heavy, heavy, heavy extent. And the easiest technique to do this is to get a baneling nest, and to make all your Zerglings into Banelings, to have almost no Zerglings out on the field, all the rest drones. And this is the mindset I want you to get in. Sure, speed Zerglings are great, but speed Zerglings are the primary defense against a player who will be doing these long-range roach attacks. Other than that, Banelings, 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 Banelings. Couple spine crawlers if you're really feeling pressured from roaches, but still, all baneling all the time. And look at both these players having quite a lot. And you might be asking yourself, well, how would I ever know that? How would I ever know these things? Overlord placement, critical, critical, critical. And of course, the speed Zerglings kind of act as another long-range Overlord. Can step quite a ways forward and pretty much take as many hits as you want. But yeah, look, Banelings, 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 Banelings. And I guess right around here, in 7 minutes, badoosh. Actually, damn, he did it right at 7. I'll back up for a moment. Okay, now we're at kind of an interesting position in Zerg vs. Zerg, where we're starting to get our drones up. We have a decent amount of Zerglings produced. This phase, or excuse me, we have a decent amount of drones produced. This phase between 6 and 7 minutes is where I would describe it as something interesting happens in the matchup. In other words, players just stop being droning, derping, and building banelings for defense. Something cool sort of goes down. On a map where there is an easy-to-take third, such as Shakuras Plateau, Antigua Shipyard, we see a lot of players just take a third right here. And I want you to note that if there has been almost no all-inning from either side, and you can always get some extra signals, like, for instance, taking these Zerglings and sort of running them around and doing a little circuit and seeing if there's any sort of high or low drone count. If you've got no signals of it, then... or if you've got no signals of an all-in, then both of you are probably droning. You can actually expand quite easily between 6 and 7 minutes. Generally a little bit closer to the 7-minute side. Very common to just throw down and expand. You might be saying something like, what if my opponent did what Stephano did and then decided to build a Roach Warren and do some sort of attack early on? Remember, we have Banelings built already, and thanks to our drone count, we can mass speed Zerglings off our 2 hatches, and he is going to struggle to do non-stop roaching off his 2 hatches with his drone count. 27 drones, that's 12, or excuse me, that's 24 mining minerals, 12 at each base and 3 in the natural gas geyser. He doesn't really have enough to just start overwhelming you with roaches. That's one of the big reasons you get speed Zerglings, is in this 7-ish minute period, your only real defense against the roaches is going to be to sort of throw up a bunch of speed Zerglings. Again, assuming you go for the 3rd or something like that. And interestingly, because players have managed to get to this phase, it actually took like 15 months since the release of StarCraft 2 to actually have players consistently getting to now, consistently getting to the 7-minute mark, and not dying to all this goofy Ling-Baneling action early on. Players now are starting to define maps based upon whether or not they can get an easy 3rd. 3rd bases are very hard on this map. There's a couple others where it's difficult, but generally on most it's pretty straightforward. But, again, what interesting thing can you do? Well, Stephano begins to go for the Roach Warren. Okay, cool. This is still pretty early Roach Warren. And we see Sheth go for the layer. Sheth will be going for mutalisks in this game. And I tell you that now to let you know that his extractors are not really early. Sheth is not trying to go ape shit with his gas. He's not going to think to himself, oh gosh, I'm getting mutas. I better really get the gas count started up mega early. No, nothing like that at all. Still just making a lot of drones and focusing on minerals. You have to keep the focus on minerals. If you go a little bit too gas focused early on, you die to pressure like this. And so you'll note that as Sheth is getting pressured, he's still building drones, he's just morphing in more Banelings. That is the defense. More drones, more drones, more drones. These 3 geysers went down. This went down right with the layer. These 2 went down a little bit after the layer, about a quarter of the way through. And one of the #1 techniques in this matchup is that if you overbuild defense, just go on offense. So, okay, cool. We have a couple of roaches being constructed for Stephano, and he moves out. We're going to see in a moment how Sheth responds. But to note, what I really love is that Stephano built this Roach Warren so that way he could have some units to kill down these destructible rocks and take his fast 3rd. So we see the roaches. How on earth does Sheth respond? Spine, spine, spine. Still no Zerglings. Are you seeing that? Spire going down. More drones. Are you seeing that? This Overlord is helping to dictate the fact that drones are being made. We saw the roaches. Okay, throw up emergency layer of spines. Well, actually, let me go through all the steps. We saw the Zerglings come up. Okay, emergency pair of Banelings. Okay, we're looking good, we're looking good. What do we do when we got the emergency Banelings? We push all the way up here to get a check. Okay, all's good. Oh, wait, roaches. Okay, emergency, emergency, emergency. Okay, keep an eye here, keep an eye. Everything good, everything good. Yeah, okay, cool. Keep building drones. Excellent. Now, I haven't focused as much on Stephano That's because literally everything I've said about Sheth applies identically to Stephano. Applies absolutely identically. I mean, you can just interchange all the discussion. If Stephano was feeling like he would be under a lot of pressure, he could easily just build a Baneling Nest, as we said before. If you move forward with the Speed Zerglings, saw some Roaches coming up, he can easily throw down some Spines. The one difference is that we built this early Roach Warren, so this Roach Warren has a long-term purpose. I don't want you to think of this game in early attacks anymore. This long-term purpose is to kill off these destructible rocks so we can take a third. That is the purpose of these Roaches. If we saw a lot of units coming up, we would just do the intuitive thing, build Roaches, build Lings, and be in good shape. It can help immediately, but it's more about that long-term purpose. So cool, we have these players now doing a divergence. We have Sheth starting to go for the Mutalisk tech. We have the Roach tech starting to expand out for Stephano. And we managed to stay alive in the early game. Most importantly, we always saw that droning was happening all the time. Droning was going nuts thanks to these Speed Zergling pokes that we're doing all over the place. Really getting the sense if more stuff's coming. And if it is, I'll find a solution that still lets me build drones. I'm going to come back from a break, and when I do, we're going to hit the mid-game. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-da-da.